In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make DIY homemade sound panels or acoustic panels that make your audio sound great, but also it makes your room look good too. We went from our studio looking like this. This is what it sounds like when you have a lot of echo in your room. So sound treatment is super important. This sounds very bad. With now just under 50 panels installed in the ceilings and walls, it makes a huge difference.
Oh, again. Fuck.
I installed 49 sound panels in this studio over the last year, but honestly it was hard to have conversations in here before the sound panels were installed because it was so echoey. The overall goal is to fill up as much space as you can in your room with these panels, the more the better. I probably could have added even more to this room, but after making like dozens and dozens of panels, I kind of got sick of the process. And besides that, there was the grid spacing sort of layout design that I had in mind. Also, I will leave links in the description for any of the materials, tools, or products that we use to make these sound panels so that it's a little easier for you instead of trying to find everything yourself like I did. In terms of the costs and the materials you can use for making these sound panels, there are a lot of different options, so I think it comes down to your budget, the room, and sort of the general idea of what you'd want out of these sound panels. For me, I was most concerned with removing as much of the echo as I could, while also making the studio still look good in terms of the design and professional feel of the space. After doing a lot of research, I decided to not go the route of the popular DIY approach, which was using burlap. And the reasons for that are, it's a little more see-through and I couldn't find it in a perfect white, which is what I wanted, unless I decided to bleach it myself, but I wasn't really into that. I did buy a huge roll of this white fabric that was pretty expensive, but again, I cared about the look as well, so for me that was a better option. I used a material called Guilford of Maine. It's 100% polyester. The style is G2100 with color code 224. I don't know how relevant that is to you, but there you go. Since I was making anywhere between like 30 and 50 panels, that was sort of my original plan, I bought about 40 yards of the white Guilford of Maine material, and that worked out to be exactly what I needed. In terms of the sizing of the panels, there isn't really a one size is the best approach. The more space you fill up with panels, the better it will be. So you could have what I did, which are sort of the typical professional size, 2 feet by 4 feet. The cost for the white material was around $1,000, which does seem expensive until you do the math and figure out the difference between doing it yourself versus paying for pro panels. I don't know the exact per panel cost for the DIY panels that we made, but if I had to say a number, I would say it was like $40 a panel, $50 a panel maybe. For us to make 4-inch thick by 2 foot by 4 foot panels that look pro, I think that's pretty good to do them for $40. And remember, that's here in Canada with Canadian dollars. If you're buying in the States with US dollars, it of course will be cheaper. Also, with the research that I did and the DIY panels that I ended up making, they're gonna be just as effective at removing echo or reducing the echo in a room as professional panels. There's not much difference. The wood I bought was 1 by 4 inch by 8 foot long pine wood. Unfortunately, I bought it at the start of the pandemic when everything was shut down because of lockdowns, so all of the wood was delivered and it ended up being warped. Seriously, some were so bad that they were curved like hockey sticks. I couldn't even use them, I just threw them out. Not cool, Home Depot, especially because the pricing of wood has gone up by like 3 times in the last year. For the insulation, I used Rockwool Safe and Sound. It's a Rockwool material. And the reason I went with that is because the pink insulation is meant to be in your walls, sort of behind drywall. And it's fine when it's like that, but if you're putting them in panels with breathable material open in your room, the pink insulation is actually lighter than air, so it'll float in the air. You can breathe it in, which obviously isn't good. Rockwool is heavier than air, so any particles that do come loose, they'll just fall to the ground. But for me, pink insulation wasn't even on my radar because I'm going to spend a lot of time in here and I care about my health. The backing material I used for all of the panels was something I stumbled upon while going through the Home Depot website. While I was going through the pages, I found this material that looked to be pretty breathable, but it was like a gardening type of material. A few weeks later, I watched Gerald Undun's video for making DIY sound panels, and he had a professional that makes sound panels talking in the video about this gardening material as like a industry secret. So I was like, oh, that's awesome that I randomly stumbled upon this and I'm using it. So that sort of worked out. Once you're ready to start making the panels, it's pretty straightforward. You cut your wood to 2 foot and 4 foot lengths, and then you screw them all together to make a rectangular box shape. From there, you cut the fabric to size. I made one box and then used that as sort of a template over the fabric to know how big I need to cut the fabric, because again, it will sort of fold over and then I'll be stapling it on the one side. So it really is important that you give yourself a little bit extra room to work with in order for you to pull it nice and tight and staple it in place. Next, you'll get your insulation, and I bought insulation that matches the sizing of the panels that I'm making, so 2 foot by 4 foot. If your insulation isn't an exact fit, you can cut it using a utility knife. So in some cases I did have to make some changes because I did have some warped wood. Once you have the insulation in, you can then put the backing material on. It doesn't really matter the color because again, it's on the back. You do want to make sure you're using something that is a bit breathable, because later when you're hanging them, I'll explain why the air gap is important. So cut your backing material to size, staple it in place, and then you're ready to go and start hanging the panels. All right, there we go. So that's 2 of like 35. This is gonna take forever, but I'm actually making pretty good progress. We got our assistant over here. In terms of the layout for where you want to hang the panels, that sort of depends on your room size and some other factors like the type of materials you have in the room. For us, it's drywall and then studs on the ceiling. So after going back and forth on a few ideas, I decided to go with clips and J-hooks that I found on Amazon, which ended up being a pretty good solution for going into the joists along the ceiling behind the drywall. I did find this approach on YouTube for how to find studs by using heavy-duty magnets, and the general idea is you place them along the studs and the magnet will find the metal nails or screws, and of course that will tell you where the studs are. So I made this little wooden block and attached them to it, and it did work, but I found the process to be not overly fast, so I did go out and spend about 45 bucks on a stud finder, which made the process go a little faster. For hanging the panels on the ceiling, I ended up using a laser level to help me because it gives you a straight line that you can work from all the way across to keep that grid system perfectly in place. Without it, I think the panels would have been sort of all over the place. And as I mentioned, I talked about the air gap. It is really important to hang the panels from the ceiling just a little bit because it'll do a better job at absorbing the echo. When you have sound that hits the panel, it gets absorbed and it sort of dissipates a little bit through the first time it goes through the insulation, and then it goes through the air gap, bounces off the ceiling, comes back down and goes through the insulation a second time. And of course, that makes it a little more efficient at reducing the echo. Once you've made and hung one panel, you just repeat the process, the exact same process over and over again for as many panels as you want to have installed, and then you're done. Oh yeah, and for the wall panels, I use something called a ZClip. It's basically a system that allows you to attach the 2 Z-clips together that forms a good connection, which safely hangs them on the wall. So the big question is, how much better does it sound with panels versus no panels? So here's a video I recorded before I put sound panels up of just how bad the echo was. Just listen how long the sound travels for after I finish talking. It's like literally 5 or 6 seconds long. And then compared to this, you can see there's just a little bit of echo, but in a way it's kind of natural. Overall, I'm super proud of this space because the sound panel sort of completed it for me. So I hope this video helps you in coming up with a plan to make the panels for your space. Now this is a 1,000 square foot studio space. Maybe your room is bigger or smaller, so you're again gonna have to customize your approach and make it specific to your needs. Maybe that means making more panels, less panels, using a different material. Like I said, there are cheaper options if you go with like a burlap material. It really comes down to you and your decisions for what you want out of the space. As long as you do spend some time coming up with a plan and you do follow the guidelines I'm placing in this video, I think you'll be just fine. If you do want to learn more filmmaking, we have over 100 other filmmaking tutorials as well as YouTube success videos. We release videos about once a week, so hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified when those videos come out. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Wow, tell me how you really feel. Oh man, my feet are sore. That was a long video.